In this State of the College report, I will discuss 4 topics: the wider context of the past year that impinges on the college, our current status and achievements, our purpose, and looking ahead to the coming year. We are now settling into a new era under President Neeli Bendapudi. She has brought a sense of optimism and hope, and she certainly has brought new energy and ideas to the university, first with the Cardinal Principles, and now most notably with the Cardinal Anti-Racist Agenda. The search for a new provost is progressing on schedule. Semi-finalists have been interviewed and 4 finalists identified, and on-campus interviews of these finalists will begin in a few weeks. A communication regarding these finalist interviews should be coming out soon. This past year has been characterized by a divided political climate, a divide that continues to grow. As we brace for a pivotal and extremely high-stakes election, we must continue to draw on the strength of our communities and intentionally work to repair the social fabric and build a society where everyone feels a sense of belonging. We began the 2019-2020 academic year with Dean Kimberly Leonard's announcement that she would step down as dean at the end of the academic year. A search for her replacement was underway when, following the Thanksgiving weekend, she abruptly announced that she would end her term early at the end of December to attend to her family. The provost met with stakeholders and asked me to serve as interim dean until the search was completed and a new dean arrived on campus. The transition was a relatively smooth one thanks to the knowledge and competence of the dean's senior staff. Needless to say, the plan for a short interim appointment was derailed by the coronavirus pandemic, which resulted in all searches being halted in March. The search has now been restarted, and the committee is completing interviews of the semifinalists, with on-campus interviews of the finalists planned for mid-November, with the goal of naming a finalist by the end of the year. The start date could be as early as January, but expected to be no later than July 2021. I will continue to serve as interim dean until the permanent dean starts in the position. Of course, the once-in-a-century crisis that has profoundly impacted each of us and changed the way we work and fulfill our mission is the coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic has challenged us to rapidly develop new ways of delivering an exceptional education to our students, to devise new safety protocols for conducting research, and to craft new ways of working, teaching, and learning. The work and planning have paid off as we have had a successful start to the fall semester under the circumstances. All A&S offices are open and staffed, though at a lower density. This fall, approximately 60% of courses are hybrid with both in-person and online components, with the remainder offered as either synchronous or asynchronous online courses. The pandemic has challenged each of us personally as well. The risks of contracting coronavirus have made us all anxious and fearful. The disruptions to work, school, and life have added new demands on our time, attention, and workload. We are, in a sense, building the plane as we are flying it, which makes everything we are doing all that much more difficult. Isolation and alienation are particularly intense during this pandemic, and we need to continue to intentionally reach out to others, reinforcing the threads of the A&S community fabric. While the pandemic has also presented us with some opportunities, we have also been committed to being always been committed to being a student-centered institution, and the pandemic has forced us to refocus how we put this into practice. It requires us both to prioritize upgrading the technology in our classrooms and to learn new skills as instructors. We need to create courses that are more flexible and utilize online components where they make sense. The pandemic has also shifted how we do our work, hold meetings, and engage with the community. Some of what we are learning now will allow us to be better at what we do going forward. The pandemic hasn't been the only sickness we've been fighting this year. The struggle against the epidemic of racism, and especially anti-black racism, has been brought to the forefront of the public consciousness. With the killings of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor in the spring, national protests and actions have erupted across the country and world, demanding justice and systemic change. Louisville is on the front lines of this battle. Many continue to suffer from the pain, anger, and frustration resulting from the flawed and unnecessary raid that led to the death of Breonna Taylor. As a community, we must demand justice and we must demand systemic change. This was the context of the past year, certainly a year that upended us all. Nonetheless, as you will see, the college has continued to fulfill its mission extraordinarily well under the circumstances. Our mission is implemented through the fantastic faculty and staff of the college, and I want to now turn to our people. This past year brought a long list of retirements of dedicated faculty who had long careers making a positive impact on our students' lives and discovering and creating new knowledge and understandings. The following faculty retired in the past year: Dale Billingsley, Gary Cobbs, Joy Carew, Margaret Da Silva, Barbara Hanger, Maura Hanker, Alan Leidner, Thomas Maloney, Mark Noble, Frank Nussel, John Rieger, Elaine Wise, and Cecilia Yappert. I wish to acknowledge and thank them all for their long service to the college. Unfortunately, Professors Cecilia Yappert and John Rieger passed away shortly after their retirements and after extraordinarily long careers at UofL. Professor George Shields also passed away this past year. He had earned his BA and MA in philosophy at UofL, and after earning a PhD from the University of Chicago and a long career teaching at Kentucky State, he returned to UofL to continue teaching in his retirement. Each leaves a legacy of having positively impacted so very many A&S students over their careers. They will be sorely missed by their families, friends, and colleagues. The following staff have also retired. Each of them left big shoes to fill: Bob Forbes, Lisa Fortwangler, Renu Karchar, Sharon O'Brien, Cindy Sailing, Allison Summers. Thank you to all of them for their years of service. I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge and publicly welcome our new tenure track faculty: Sarah Buford in psychology and brain sciences, Natalie Christian in biology, Calvin Coker, communication, Damian Guerra in biology, William Scott Gunter in geography and geosciences, Katherine Johnson in political science, Katie Kleinkopf in comparative humanities, Alicia Lackey, biology, Andrew Mehring, biology, Evan Milliken in mathematics, Megan Poole in English, Lucian Roth in classical and modern languages, Kara Snyder in women's gender and sexuality studies, and Andrew Wilson in chemistry. I also want to recognize those faculty who were promoted to associate professor with tenure last year. This is a major accomplishment in the career of a faculty member, and I congratulate each of the following: Tiffany Calvert, Daniel DeCaro, Brendan Depew, Thomas Wayne Edison, Timothy Johnson, Sherry Levinson, Nicholas Knowles, Andrea Ollinger, Nicholas Palowitz, Rachel Single, Forrest Stevens, and Joseph Turner. Additionally, congratulations to Charlie Zhang for being promoted to full professor. Last but not least, I want to congratulate our term faculty who were promoted to associate professor term: Joshua Adams, Jana Goldentool, Christopher Grady, Mark Mattis, and Robin Moser. Chairing a department demands a considerable commitment of time and energy, and also requires skill and wisdom. I'm grateful to the following faculty for recently taking on this role: Nefertiti Burton in theater arts, Jason Gaines in political science, Tad Hughes in criminal justice, Avery Kohlers in philosophy, and Pavel Kozlowski in chemistry. Special thanks to the faculty who have finished their terms as chair or who are outgoing: Cherie Dawson-Edwards, Craig Grapperhaus, Jasmine Ferrier, and Kevin Gawley. After our former LFO, Ann Moser, resigned in the spring of 2019, the college did not hire a lead financial officer immediately. Julie Wagner stepped up to take on the additional workload, and we are very grateful for her tireless dedication and commitment to ensuring the financial stability of the college. In February, I appointed Talia Willis as interim lead financial officer. She has done an exceptional job under the most trying circumstances. Not only did she work tirelessly to implement fair furlough and staffing plans during the pandemic, but she has also made significant strides improving processes and functions in the business center and in the dean's office. In June of 2020, Cynthia Ganote stepped down as Assistant Dean for Diversity and Community Engagement. I thank her for her valuable contributions. Given both my commitments to diversity, the national and local Black Lives Matter actions, and the announcement of the Cardinal Anti-Racism Agenda, I prioritized the appointment of an Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm very happy that Dr. Cherie Dawson-Edwards started in this role on October 1st. She will ably lead the college in her commitments to anti-racism, equity, and social justice. I'm also grateful to Dr. Karen Chandler for stepping in as Acting Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education, while Linda Fuselier is on sabbatical this fall. Taking on this role has been made especially difficult under the conditions of the pandemic, and we all owe her a debt of gratitude for her tireless work supporting both students and faculty in these new circumstances. Another key piece of the puzzle that makes it possible for us to fulfill our mission is the college's budget. The university implemented a new performance-based budget model this year. The model allocates tuition revenue according to student enrollments, recognizing that, for better or worse, we are a tuition-driven institution. For undergraduate enrollments, 70% of the tuition earned for student credit hours is returned to the units generating the tuition, A&S in this case. For graduate enrollments, 75% of tuition is returned, and for professional enrollments, 85%. However, there is also a cross-subsidization that occurs between units. Some units earn more tuition revenue than their current budgets. A&S is one of these, while other units run structural deficits and need to be subsidized. The fact that A&S earns more tuition revenue than we get back in our budget puts us in a strong financial position within the university because we contribute an essential portion of revenue to the general fund. I have applied the same formulas that allocate revenue at the university level to department and program budgets within A&S. Talia and I will continue to work with department chairs and their UBM intermediates to be sure everyone has a thorough understanding of how the model operates and how we can most effectively implement it. This new budget model does not rebuild or restructure budgets from a blank sheet. Rather, it begins from current budget levels and incentivizes and rewards growth in student enrollments. Increasing enrollments will result in increases to budgets, both for the college and for departments. However, decreasing enrollments will return less revenue to both colleges and departments. Once we have a year under our belts of putting the new model into practice, A&S will begin tweaking it to make it more nuanced and to incentivize what we value. We've already begun this process by working out a way for interdisciplinary programs to flourish under the new model. And I am grateful to a group of department chairs who developed this solution. At the university level, the budget model work group, to which I am appointed, will review the budget model and its implementation in the current fiscal year and make recommended revisions. Additionally, I propose to department chairs that a portion of carryover funds from the prior fiscal year be redirected to fund diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and they happily agreed to this proposal. To be sure, the new budget model presents us with many challenges. To start, Talia and the Business Center must develop new systems and processes for administering the revenue distribution within the college. We also will want to review the formula for internal cross-subsidization that we have historically used in the college, and which is necessary. As we continue to implement the new model, we will undoubtedly discover additional problems to solve and it will take the year for us to work through these details. As most of you know, the coronavirus pandemic had some severe budget implications, resulting in a projected $39 million shortfall in the last fiscal year for the university. A variety of levers were used to close this budget gap, including temporary salary reductions, furloughs, a pause in institutional retirement contributions, a hiring freeze, and a spending freeze. I want to thank everyone, most especially staff, for their sacrifices. It was those sacrifices that allowed the university to end the year in the black and the college to avoid any layoffs. The 2020-2021 budget was adopted in light of the pandemic and includes projections that account for revenue losses and additional expenses. The fiscal year 21 budget for the college is $67.1 million, which is an increase of $1.8 million or 2.8% over the prior year's budget. At the end of the first quarter, our revenues and expenses are tracking as planned, and the budget outlook for the current fiscal year is good at this time. All units, including A&S, were required to set aside 5% of our budgets in a contingency fund to cover any unexpected shortfalls during the remainder of the current year. Since we are a tuition-driven institution, much turns on the strength of student enrollments. The good news is that summer 2020 enrollments university-wide were up 9.9% over the prior year, while fall undergraduate enrollments for A&S year over year were down 3.5%, and graduate enrollments declined just 0.7%. Total enrollments for the university increased this fall by 1% year over year. In addition, budgeting for the fiscal year 21, the current fiscal year that we're in, was based on projections of lower than normal enrollments, and the university has so far exceeded these projections. At the end of the first quarter, A&S is in a sound financial position. Our graduation rates continue to rise from 51% 3 years ago to 55.8% in the most recent cohort. Spring enrollments are unknown, of course, and the health of the A&S budget depends significantly on the strength of spring enrollments. This is why it is especially important that each of us exercise care and concern for students. They are suffering from the coronavirus pandemic and the epidemic of racism just as we are, and they are struggling to learn under these circumstances and in an online environment, just as faculty are learning to adapt their teaching to this new world that we live in. We all need to be doing what we can to support the students' success and to give them reasons to believe they will continue to have an exceptional educational experience in spring. While we are talking about students, I would like to take the opportunity to mention some of our most exceptional students. They are truly an impressive group. Thank you to our many faculty and staff who serve as their supporters and mentors. Fulbright U.S. Student Fulbright Awards were earned by Evan Clark, Danielle Graves, Megan Lenahan, Alex McGrath, Travis Ray, Jared Thomas, Niara Wakaba, and Casey Golding. Critical Language Scholar Award went to Evan Clark. Boren Scholars were Celia Cusick, Madeline McLeod, and English Speaking Union awards went to Sabrina Collins and Abigail Posey. The Mary Churchill Humphrey Scholarship went to Megan Floyd. The Moore Undergraduate Research Apprenticeship went to Sydney Gardner. The NASA Develop Program was awarded to Laura Krauser. And the Woodcock Medal for undergraduate achievement went to Dasha Kolyaskina. Turning to faculty, here are the current totals, demographics, and trends. Our full-time faculty are down by about 10% over the last 3 years, 9.6 for tenure track and tenured, and down, but up 10% for term. And that's going in the wrong direction for both of those. For gender, We continue to be about 60%, a little bit over 60% male faculty versus 39% female. As you can see, we're losing female faculty at a higher rate than we're losing male faculty. Overall, we're down, again, 9.6% for tenured or tenure track faculty. When it comes to race, again, we're down overall 10%, but for Black and African American faculty, we're down 20%. White faculty, down 8.3%. As an R1 research university, our faculty are extraordinarily productive scholars. As you can see, our total refereed publications in 2019 were 673. Our grant funding continues to be especially productive. While the number of awards are down by a little over 12%, that's not surprising given the fact that the numbers of faculty are down. The amounts of the awards are up when you count both PIs and co-PIs. We're up 29.8% in terms of grant funding. As state appropriations continue to decline, we become more and more reliant on philanthropy dollars. The pandemic, the resulting uncertain economy, combined with the virtual environment, have made it challenging to secure major gifts. So now, more than ever, we will need to rely on smaller gifts and multi-year pledges. As you can see, our total gift giving year over year is down 17%, but the coronavirus struck us in the early part of 2020, and that's had a major impact. But our annual fund and day of giving gifts are up slightly. The college has well over 55,000 living alumni, so small gifts from lots of people can make a substantial impact. For this reason, next week's Raise Some L Day of Giving campaign is especially important. It's a crowdfunding campaign, so the number of gifts is just as important as the amount. I encourage members of the college who are active on social media to participate. By participating, we can provide much needed discretionary funds for our departments, more scholarships for students, and extend the reach of our social justice programs and initiatives. One of our biggest strengths is our people. And so I want to take a few minutes to acknowledge and celebrate the outstanding faculty and staff of the college. We could not have the celebration of excellence last spring as planned, and at this point it looks likely to combine with the 2021 celebration. I don't know when that will occur. It looks like it's at least a year away at this point. Our 2020 Distinguished Faculty Awards for Scholarship, Research, and Creativity were awarded to Renan Omer Sherman, Michael Nance, and Muriel Maurer. For teaching, the awards went to Karen Christopher and Angela Oren. And for service, Dewey Clayton and Craig Graperhaus. Outstanding Performance Awards for staff went to Cassandra Book, Kamla Gant, Michelle Henderson, Sherry Nally, Jason Sievers, and Sarah Springer. The Diversity and Engagement Awards went to Cherie Wallace, Yolanda Demery, and Laura Haynes. The Teaching Innovation Award went to Tricia Gray, Outstanding Supervisor Award, Tiffany Dillard-Knox, Outstanding Graduate Mentor, Marcy DeCaro, and Outstanding Director of Graduate Studies, Lisa Markowitz. I now want to turn to a consideration of our purpose. It is said that higher education is in crisis these days, that its purposes are unclear, its contributions to the public good limited to technological achievements, and that it has just become another politicized institution. As John Thalen has shown in his comprehensive history of American higher education, higher ed has been through multiple periods of crisis and has been, from the start, continually seeking its identity, purpose, and relationship to the broader society. Nonetheless, it is important for the College of Arts and Sciences to have a clear identity and vision of its purpose and relation to the wider society. The essence of a research university is the discovery, preservation, and dissemination of knowledge and understandings. Our work expands the boundaries of human potential through research, scholarship, and creativity preservation of knowledge and understandings, and passing these on to the next generation. Some have argued that the project of the research university is nothing more than a disinterested inquiry that seeks only truth. In seeking nothing but the goal of truth, the research university on this view is purely objective, impartial, and separate from social, cultural, and political forces. A true ivory tower. On this view, seeking racial justice, as the cardinal anti-racist agenda challenges us to do, or social justice more broadly conceived, is in conflict with the fundamental purpose of the university. Truth is seen as impartial, objective, disinterested, while social and racial justice are seen as partisan, political, and interested. The two are at odds with one another, and promoting social and racial justice undermines our fundamental purpose, or so it is argued. I believe this view of the essence of the research university and its goal of truth is too simple. I come from the school of thought known as critical social theory. In this school, human knowledge and human interests are intertwined. The philosopher Jürgen Habermas has argued that knowledge is bound up with three fundamental interests that humanity has: the interest in control over the physical environment, the interest in achieving agreed upon understandings about our shared social world, and the interest in emancipation from domination. To be sure, this is not the place to dive more deeply into his arguments and their justification, but I think this provides us a useful framework for thinking about the relation of truth and social and racial justice. If the discovery of knowledge and construction of understandings is our purpose, then the purpose of a research university is to seek both truth and social justice. If we don't include all interests, perspectives, and voices in the discovery and creation process, then the consequent knowledge and understandings that result are limited and distorted renditions. If adequate forms of knowledge and understandings require that we cast our net broadly to include all voices, we must commit ourselves to making sure that we go about discovery that is not exclusionary. And there is plenty of historical and contemporary evidence that this is precisely what has happened in higher education: exclusionary practices that result in the maintenance of distorted forms of knowledge and understandings. Further, recent work in philosophy has drawn attention to epistemologies of ignorance, structures of knowing that expressly prohibit certain kinds of knowledge or inquiry. For example, Charles Mills has argued that white supremacy as a social system functions in a way so as to discourage public discourse about whiteness, white privilege, and white supremacy itself. This demonstrates another way that truth and justice are interconnected. A&S has a somewhat storied relationship with social and racial justice. Since at least the late 1960s, A&S students and faculty have insisted that fulfilling the commitment to access and inclusion means expanding the scope of who does the research and what questions are asked. In 1969, then student and later dean Blaine Hudson was a leader in demonstrations demanding an expansion of the curriculum and greater support for historically excluded black students. This led to the creation of the Department of Pan-African Studies in 1973. Since that time, pushed by tireless advocates within, A&S has continued to expand its commitment to a broader conception of knowledge and deepen its commitment to social justice. Here's a partial list of programs that demonstrate A&S's recognition of this interrelation of knowledge and justice. The Pan-African Studies Department, the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies Department, the Ann Braden Institute for Social Justice Research, programs in social change, peace, justice, and conflict resolution, Latin American and Latino studies, Asian studies, Middle Eastern and Islamic studies, and the African American Theater program. The STEM disciplines also recognize the value of these linkages, from the Bridge program in physics that serves to diversify graduate education to a seminar series on inclusive practices in teaching and research that are being considered in mathematics. Although we have occasionally lost the path, A&S has remained committed to linking the discovery, preservation, and dissemination of knowledge and understandings to human interests and emancipation. but now we are called upon to do more. We must do more. As we look forward, I believe the College of Arts and Sciences would benefit from developing a stronger sense of identity, one that is grounded in our shared purpose and A&S community. We are, as Dean Hudson used to say, a living community, and this means we need to be intentional about who we are and what draws us together. Also, there is no doubt the higher education marketplace is becoming ever more competitive, especially as we look beyond the pandemic. Therefore, we also need to be able to answer the question, what distinguishes the University of Louisville's College of Arts and Sciences from any other College of Arts and Sciences or liberal arts college in the state or even in the nation? In other words, what gives us our particular identity and how do we stand out from the others? I propose that in the course of the coming year, we engage in a college-wide conversation involving faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends of the college about our purpose, identity, and distinctiveness so that we can clarify and sharpen our self-understanding and have a coherent narrative about who we are. In the remainder of this address, I want to offer my own ideas about what could be included in this conversation. As I have already intimated, our history, academic strengths, metropolitan location, and faculty and staff expertise all point towards our being able to carve out at least one aspect of our identity, that of being a leader for social and racial justice. While this is already a significant aspect of who we are, we need to become clearer about what that means for us as a college. While we have a significant legacy to build upon, we also have much work to do. Many are already doing this work, and we need to acknowledge and celebrate them. But we also need a focused and sustained effort to systematically transform the practices and policies of A&S. Another central aspect of our identity is the world-class research, scholarship, and creative activity produced by the faculty. Being classified as a Carnegie Very High Research Institution, or what is commonly referred to as an R1 university, is central and critical to who we are. The outstanding research, scholarship, and creative activity we generate is what makes us truly an institution of higher education. And it greatly improves the quality of the education we provide for our students, both at the undergraduate and graduate levels. Not only do we need to continue to support research, but we also need to find ways to recruit and, most importantly, retain world-class faculty. We are already producing exceptional work in each of our divisions, the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. And it is imperative that we build on this strength. We also have valuable and distinctive interdisciplinary programs and initiatives. We need to recognize the unique value interdisciplinarity brings to achieving our mission, and thus we must restructure our policies and practices to more adequately recognize this value and support these programs. One way to better integrate research into our identity is to find new ways to communicate and discuss the significance and impact of our phenomenal research, scholarship, and creative activity for a wider public audience. Being student-centered is another key aspect of our A&S purpose, identity, and distinctiveness. We have a unique opportunity to revisit this aspect of who we are and to recommit to it. I think the pandemic has highlighted both the central importance of this to our mission and also where our strengths and weaknesses lie. Our success rests critically on providing students with an excellent education while also making sure they have the best possible college experience while at UofL. I believe further conversations would be helpful to clarify for ourselves what it means to be student-centered and how that can be put into practice. A final aspect of what can make A&S distinctive is our strong sense of community, our connectedness with one another, and the sense of belonging we feel. Here, I think we sense that we share a common purpose, and many of us take pride in working in higher education. Our community, our A&S community, is our strength, even though our sense of this has been challenged in recent years. This sense of community is an important aspect of who we are, an aspect that requires continuous renewal and recommitment. In conclusion, despite severe external pressures and challenges, the state of the college is sound. We have challenges ahead of us, but we are in a good position to confront and overcome these challenges. And we are in a good position because of the members of the A&S community, including staff, faculty, students, alumni, and friends of the college. We are our greatest strength, and I am proud to count myself as a member of this community. Thank you to each of you for joining me today and for your ongoing commitment to the college. Have a great weekend.